live right now, your guest host for tonight's edition of Higher Ed Live. I am the Director of Web Development at the University of Central Arkansas. And on my script it says to describe your day job, and let's just be honest, in higher ed, anything goes. Please follow our conversation tonight on Twitter at Higher Ed Live, and you can also follow me if you wish at VPMore. Tonight's show is all about the mobile evolution at the University of Vermont. That's uvm.edu for those of you playing the home game. But first, a word for our Higher Ed Live sponsors. Tonight's show, we obviously want to thank OmniUpdate. OmniUpdate is the leading web content management system provider for higher education. The company's web CMS OU Campus is secure, scalable, with great tools and features. It has deployment flexibility and an awesome user community. In fact, it was ranked the highest ranked CMS in customer satisfaction in the 2010 .edu Guru survey. So if you need a CMS, check out omniupdate.com. We also want to thank Integral tonight. Higher Ed Live is sponsored by Integral, the creators of the Schools app, a private Facebook community to boost enrollment and retention. Check out their blog, Integral Insights, for posts on admissions marketing, student engagement, and social media in higher education. We should be tweeting that link out right now. Now let's take a moment to introduce our guest. Tonight with me is Tatjana Salcedo, web strategist at the University of Vermont. Is that right? Did I get that name right?
Yes, you did.
Awesome. I noticed in your bio that you started in higher ed in 2000. I, too, started in higher ed. And let me ask you, I think the first question, since that's kind of our common ground there, did you ever think you'd be in higher ed this long?
You don't know the half of it. I started at UVM in 2000, but this is actually my fourth higher ed gig. I pretty much came out of college and went right into higher ed. This might be where I end my career, I don't know. But yeah, it's been certainly a long while, and maybe too long, but I'm enjoying it.
No, it's never too long. Tell me about your typical day at UVM.
Well, like you started the show saying, you know, this is higher ed, anything goes. I can be immersed deep in some cool new project about mobile or Google Analytics, or I can just be helping people out, fixing their web pages, or working with student interns. It's a really hodgepodge of things going on to handle every day.
What do you think is your favorite thing? You mentioned just the kind of the typical stuff. I found myself this week dealing with column classes in WordPress and just had a great time for a couple of hours. What is your favorite thing about working in higher ed?
There's just a lot of stuff going on. It's not like one, I can only guess since I haven't worked in industry, but say you're working at a supermarket, it's all about the supermarket. In higher ed, there's every kind of thing from one corner to another. You can be doing business practice stuff. You can get really in deep with all different sorts of academics. We're at a university with multiple colleges, so everything from business to agriculture to one day we had sheep grazing on our green as part of an agricultural thing. So there's just a lot of different things going on, a lot of different people, all different sorts of areas of expertise, a lot of different kinds of web work that we're doing, and it really sort of keeps my brain sharp, being able to move between one thing and another and find out new stuff every day.
Come to UVM, we've got sheep.
We've got sheep.
Let's talk about the web at UVM. I read where you have sort of a homegrown dynamic templating system and a decentralized web management. I've lived that myself. Are you working towards a centralized solution, or does the decentralized model work for you?
It's a bit of a blessing and a curse. We've been trying to go to a centralized web content management system for 8, 9, 10 years, a really long time. We haven't gotten there yet. We haven't been able to sort of funnel the resources into the project, and the longer we wait, the amount of resources we need to funnel into that just grows and grows. So we're kind of at this a little bit of an impasse now. But the decentralized model is really, because our team is really small, it's what makes it work. If we had to take care of all the stuff that was going on in the university, with just a small team, there's 4 of us, we'd never be able to do half the stuff we can do when we have a lot of different people developing stuff for the web and a lot of different webmasters on campus. So, it's got its challenges for sure, and we definitely like to see some more centralization happening. But I think there's always going to be some degree of decentralization necessary to sort of make our whole web machine keep running.
I noticed, like I said, for me, we've had issues with many logos people want to use. They want to tweak the colors. How have you, and I saw you have a bunch of templates on your site, how successful have you been, and what has been your process for putting this together? So sort of giving the brand to your decentralized team and letting them run with it.
Well, like you mentioned before, we have a homegrown sort of a dynamic publishing system for our website. That's been around actually before I started at UVM. It started in 1998 when that was kind of a new concept. And when I came along in 2000, there was a lot of people, sort of interested in developing their websites using the system. And we were able to sort of develop that system and make it customizable to a point where early in the 2000s, maybe by 2004, 2005, we had convinced almost all the departments on campus to come into our system. So they were all using this one set of central templates, which is really just part of the incentive is that we offer support for people. So if you come and use our publishing system, you can come and meet with us. We have weekly help hours where we sit down with people and help them through all their problems. We can help them with the customization that they might need. And that's really been the incentive to get people to use the system. And we have pretty much most of our departments, there's a few that are out there that do their own things. Most of everybody is now following that template system. And what comes with that is our standard footer and header and menuing design. And so that's really sort of kept us having that logo and that sort of the same look and feel throughout the site, and that's worked out really well for us. We've even been able to extend that look and feel using our graphic design policy into sort of hosted type solutions that have to be hosted on off campus servers and whatnot. So we've done a pretty good job of keeping our brand a little tighter than some institutions, I think, of similar sizes.
Do you have tasers?
Tasers. we have a couple in our university communications office. We have a couple brand police, and if you screw with the brand too much, they'll come after you, and it's not a pleasant experience. Fortunately, I don't have to do that job.
That's good. That's good. I would love to do that job, but that's because I think tasers would be involved. We've sort of set up, the history of web at UVM, but tonight we wanted to talk about focusing on your mobile evolution. Tell me how the mobile site came about. Is it true that it started off as an undergrad project? And kind of explain that.
Our mobile stuff was definitely pushed by our student body. We had been we knew mobile was coming. I had been reading the articles, I've been watching statistics, and our mobile traffic, let's go back to like 2010, our mobile traffic was really modest, but I could see that it was growing fast, and I knew this was going to be the next big thing. It was happening in industry. The demographics were all pointing towards our students and our prospective students being really hot on the mobile bandwagon. But again, resources are always tight in higher ed, especially in higher ed web. So we were just sort of watching things and waiting. And first along came some computer science students, and they basically said, we want a mobile site, so we're going to build it. So they built a site in 2010. They were hoping for our blessing to make it the official UVM site. We didn't, in part because it was basically a one page with a search engine that linked to our unmobile-friendly search site, and a bunch of links that led to other content that was also not mobile-friendly. But we knew that the need was there, and not long after that, we started thinking, this mobile stuff, we need to get going. Another computer science student came along and said, I'm going to make a mobile app. Are you with me or not? And so we teamed him up with our admissions office, and he came out with, I guess it was early in 2011, came out with the iUVM app, which was our first and so far only institution-wide mobile app. And that was, pretty much all his work and his incentive. He wanted to have it in his portfolio. So that was really our, we knew the students wanted it, the students were crying for it, so we just better get going. So we took that to the next step, and I, still without a lot of resources to put into this, I had a couple summer interns coming in, and I just sort of took one intern aside, and I said, we're going to build a mobile site this summer, and it's going to be your project. So he basically owned it and worked with me, and we developed our first official UVM mobile site, and that came out in the summer of 2011.
And we're talking about the site that's built on or with Karogo? Is that
correct?
Okay.
Correct.
And Karogo is an open source platform for developing mobile sites, iOS and Android apps. Tell me how you chose Karogo.
Well, we had been, again, we knew that we weren't going to have a budget for our mobile project. So I went out there and I was looking at what kind of things other schools were doing. So there was a lot of stuff to look at. And I early on became sort of enamored with 3 different sites where they're sort of my gold standards. It was the MIT site, University of California, San Diego site, and the Harvard site. And they were all developed on a very similar platform that was, if I'm not mistaken, originally developed at MIT, and just sort of there was a fork that went out for the University of California people, and then a fork that went out to Harvard, which became the Moto Labs Karogo framework. And when I was working with my intern, I said, these are definitely 3 I want you to look at, and just look at whatever else is out there. You can look at the cost options, because we can always go and plead a case. And so he went out and looked at them and came back to me and said, I really like this Karogo framework. Here's why. Here's what I think we could do with it. Here's what I think the potential is. And he really helped me sell on that framework. And it worked out really well for us. It was enough that we could get that up and running and customize and get all the content that we really wanted to get in there in a summer, so that we were ready to launch before the students came back in August.
Cool. Let me ask you. I noticed on the UWebD email list earlier, like a couple hours ago, someone asked about Karogo, and one of the concerns was, and I kind of touched base with a person offline, and was simply that on the I made a note here, on the GitHub site there hadn't been any commits in the last 7 months or so, and they were curious as to the development of the framework. What has your success been with that, or how have you worked with that?
Well, actually, I noticed the same thing not too long ago, because I have another another intern that's actually in the spring semester, and asked him to go check on updates to Karogo. And the interesting thing about the Karogo framework is one of the things that I really liked about it in the beginning. It's definitely an open source framework, and we were on fairly early in the process. We became sort of a little poster child for the Moto Labs people. And we were able to do development and push back into the project. So we were able to add commits to GitHub to get into the project. To Moto Labs' credit, they are a company and they want to make a profit. So they're doing a lot of the development work they do is in the very sort of customized aspect that you go and you hire them to work with you to do your customized versions. And I think what's going on right now in the Karogo community is people have sort of moved on to this very customized stuff that's really for their school and their data, and not a lot of people in the community are giving back. But it's still, I was actually shocked. I said, can you go check on our mobile site, because I haven't looked at it in a long time. And he said, everything's fine, everything's perfect, up and running, no problems, threw in some updates, everything's good. So it's doing its job for sure. And I think that, like I said, one of the blessings of having a framework like Karogo is there's a company behind it. So if you need to go and do something special and you don't have the resources to do it, then you go and hire Moto Labs, and they come in and take care of just the chunk that you need from them. I don't know if that answers your question.
No,
I think that's exactly what's going on there.
That's good. And I'll pass this gentleman's information along to you. You can touch base with him offline.
Sure.
You've said a word that I don't hear much here, and that's internships and the use of students. there's generally a process to get that started. Let's talk about how you've done that, how you've leveraged that, and maybe some ideas you might have for other institutions who might be facing limited resources like us.
Well, I have to backpedal a little. Our interns are paid interns. They come out of my budget most of the time, so they're not free
Wait, you have a
labor.
budget?
My teeny tiny little student labor budget. I have been lucky to be able to get work-study students in the past, so obviously that's a great boon. But unfortunately, with work studies, the amount of students that are actually qualified to do the computer programming that we need is often lower, or they can go off and get a job in industry and make probably 3 times the money that I could ever pay them. So that's been a tough bridge to climb. But I have been able to mediate my budget a little bit by using work-study students. But students who sign up with us, we try to sell the whole concept of working with us as a way to build your portfolio, get your hands on some real-world projects, make a difference to your fellow classmates, and earn a little bit of money, earn a little spending money. So I mean, I obviously don't pay them like they would if they were out working at a .com company, but it works out well for us. And we've had a lot of students that will hang out 3 or 4 years of their college career, and that's worked out really well. And they act as mentors for one another, which is really great because we don't actually have a real serious programmer on our web team. So to have the students sort of pick up that slack has just, I don't know what we do without them.
Sounds like you've got a good thing going there. Okay, remember, if you have any thoughts or questions, you can @me @bpmore, use the hashtag HigherEdLive. I think I'm monitoring that okay. Let's transition to the iPhone app.
Sure.
Tell me about the iPhone app. I've downloaded it. I've messed with it. How did that come about? Was it a similar process as the mobile, or?
No, that was actually came out slightly before our UVM mobile site, our mobile website on Karogo. That was the 100% student project. A student had come in, said, "I'm making an app, and I wanna get input from somebody," and we hooked them up with our admissions group. And he changed some of his ideas based on what admissions would like to see in an iPhone app. And he developed and programmed it himself. His name was Christopher Tucci, and he was a computer science student. Unfortunately, we have not been able to, he graduated after he finished the app, and we have not been able to go in and really update his work. But we're currently looking into making this summer another mobile summer with one of our students, and getting a run at version 2 of our mobile app, and this time having an Android as well as an iPhone app. So the app was it was definitely better than that first computer science website that we were talking about, but it still had its limitations. So it had a great map and great lookups, but a lot of the content in it had used RSS news feeds, would link to web pages that were decidedly unmobile friendly. So it was definitely a step in the right direction, but wasn't quite where we want to be, especially today.
In your plans with the app, to the version 2, to make sure that you kind of have a little more control as far as getting it into the App Store and all of that, are you going to? Because I know that's in our situation. We've got an app here that was done, and it needs to be updated, and the resources aren't there, and the cost.
It is a problem. We did have an opportunity to work with Chris on our app, that we posted it to the iTunes store, and we have the iTunes account. So we're in good shape there, which I know is like already half the battle.
Right, yeah. That
the
was
next thing is diverting resources into developing version 2. We're hoping to do that on the Karogo framework, and port that over from there. So that, but we're right now we're kind of dealing with, since we did responsive, our responsive site came out in January, just the beginning of the new year. We're sort of struggling to see where iPhone app and our mobile website sort of fit into that bigger picture. So we're still sort of working out the kinks there and finding out what kind of life if any, are the app and the mobile website, dedicated mobile website, going to have in the future?
Okay. Before we get into the responsive conversation, a question from Twitter. How do you deal with the competing interests for the mobile app and mobile web, being different schools and administration?
There was when we first had the mobile website went up, that was sort of a bone of contention, and that's what really pushed us to go to responsive design. It's sort of a good segue to the responsive design discussion, because not only were we having it wasn't overall, but pockets of people on campus saying, how do we get on this mobile site? We even noticed an interesting user behavior, and people were going to our mobile site, which is m.uvm.edu, and typing in ends of the URLs like they would on a normal site. So if there was www.uvm.edu/English, they'd try m.uvm.edu/English. And so we saw that a pattern of that occurring, and they were clearly different users doing this, looking at which kind of devices were trying to do this. So we thought, oh, people are looking for more than what we put out there. So now what are we going to do? So we actually released a mobile template. So using our publishing system, our template publishing system, people could create a parallel mobile site, but people weren't doing it. In fact, people who had even expressed interest in using the Karogo platform, we would set them up. We'll set you up an area in Karogo. You can administer it. You can have your own little Karogo site. People weren't doing it. And I think part of that was that the resources that we struggled to find on our team to dedicate to mobile, departments were struggling with the same thing. They couldn't even maintain their regular website, never mind create a parallel mobile website. So even as we've gone into responsive design, we've actually been surprised by how quiet a lot of our units have been about trying to make the switch to mobile. They're really not ready to dedicate the resources to do it. So we're trying to help them along as best we can, and try to do it in a very sort of prioritized manner.
You've worn them down is what you've done. You made them feel your pain, and you're like, no.
No, like, come on, you got to go responsive. You need to get on the board.
And
so hard.
Let's talk about responsive. It's sort of the new kid on the block. New kid on the block reference there. Responsive web design. I base my purchases now, or if I'm going to look for a new dentist or that type of stuff, on responsive web design. If the site isn't responsive, I'll move along until I can find. I mean, it's sort of the new standard for me, and it's kind of I accept it as a way of life, and I expect to see it, and I get mad when I don't. Tell me about your introduction to responsive web design and how this has changed your approach towards your mobile efforts.
Well, when we knew early on in the Karogo process that this was going to be a stopgap measure. We were only putting portions of our site in there. And we didn't want to have another site to update. So the Karogo site is pretty much based completely on syndicated content that we already have in place. RSS feeds, iCal feeds, etc. But all the standard HTML pages, they didn't really have a good place in there. So we decided, okay, what are we going to do next? And I became completely enamored with the Boston Globe site. I'm sure that everybody's now familiar with when it came out in responsive. I must have spent hours playing with it and looking at it and deconstructing it. And I said, this is it. This is going to be the next best thing. This is probably going to solve a lot of our problems, because here's a way that we can just convert everybody, one site to update, no problems, and this will be the sort of the magic bullet that we need to get over the mobile hump. I don't think I ever thought it was going to be the complete long-term solution, and I'm still not sure about that. But I knew this was a way that we could work with what we had, and a good fit, I think, for higher ed and our big, rambling web spaces where we don't have the time to sit down and create parallel mobile universes or even parallel mobile experiences from the same content. So again, what are we going to need for resources to make this happen in our resource drop team? So we sat back and waited a little while and watched, for Notre Dame to come out with their site, and Lancaster University was another one of my early favorites. And then I started looking at the mobile data, and I said, okay, how we're going to need to sell this. So even if we can't get the resources for it, how are we going to make sure that everybody's on board that this needs to be a priority for us? So I drilled into our statistics. And again, I saw that our mobile traffic was increasing, but it was still a small percentage. So I wanted to drill in a little bit more. And I noticed that if I peeled off the first layer and just looked at our off-campus traffic, that the mobile traffic was almost twice as high as our aggregate data. And if I drilled in a little bit deeper and I looked at the people that were coming to visit our admissions pages and looked at them, yet another level. And so I said, okay, here's the case. Mobile is growing, it's growing fast, and it's growing especially among prospective students. So we need to move on a solution, and I think responsive is going to be the next wave, and I think we can be sort of early in the pack in this and do a good job. We have this old, antiquated publishing system, but the one thing that it does great is templates. And this is going to be all about creating templates and pieces to the templates to make it work. So we were able to sort of sell that to our boss and sell it to admissions, and everybody was sort of on board. And we decided to dedicate a whole, basically a whole fall semester to ramping up to responsive design. And we thought about it a lot in the summer, but we really sort of dug in our heels and went to work in September in 2012. And we were able to flip over to our top tier and our homepage in January.
January. Huh. So you've been working hard. Take a deep breath. Someone asked on Twitter, do you have what's your favorite responsive sites in higher ed? And because I just read that, it's like when I used to walk into, back in the day when you go into a music store and completely forget about what you wanted to look for. Yeah, that's my moment right now. So what are your favorite sites?
It's changing constantly. I have to say, I have a lot of respect for Notre Dame and all the stuff they're doing. They've been very cutting edge. I never would have been as daring as they have been with their site. But I think they're super trailblazers, and it's really nice to watch and see what they do and sort of live and learn from what they're doing. Again, one of my favorite sites early on was Lancaster University in the UK. I thought they just did a really nice, excellent job. And now I'm a little bit, I'm trying to remember, is it Weedy Garden? There's somebody who keeps a list of higher ed responsive sites, and I've checked that on a regular basis and blast through. And I have to say, I don't think there's one site I like more than others, but I'm able to capture nuggets from pretty much every site I visit. I like what they did there. I don't like that, and learn from that. So it's definitely helped, and it hasn't just been limited to higher ed. There's a lot of other cool stuff with responsive design going on out there that's also been great sort of teachers for us in the process.
I think the Weedy Garden site is done by, I'm going blank, from Notre Dame, by the way. I think there's a tie in there.
Runyon, yeah.
Yes,
right?
yes. Thank you. Let's talk about any challenges you had during the whole responsive redesign process. Did you run into any issues, or is something you have so awesome that magic just happened?
Well, there was a couple issues. One, we decided that we really didn't want to do a major redesign in the process of doing a responsive retrofit, or we could call it. We wanted to sort of do what were sort of our incremental redesign process, and in fact, it turns out we wanted to make things so there really were very few changes, and that meant that we wouldn't have to have the big discussion about, oh, you're moving this button there and that. So we wanted to really avoid that conversation. So one of our challenges was taking a site that was designed completely in a fixed width format and taking it to a responsive level. And so, we ran into all kinds of things. I have to say, one of the trickiest things, I say we were working on this, we dug in our heels and worked from September to January, but the first 2 months were all about, okay, how are we going to deal with all these menus? Where are we going to put them? How are they going to behave? What are they going to look like at various levels? what is the behavior? How big are the targets need to be on a touch device so that you can access them? And we went through a lot of different menu iterations before we even got to one that we were happy with. And sometimes we'd have to take it out. Somebody would say, okay, this is the one. We'd take it out, we'd build it, and then we'd be like, no, that's not it. That's not it. So I remember in particular being like, are we ever going to find a menu system that we like? And didn't surprise me. In fact, one of the ways I prepared for developing our responsive site was I took a class with higher ed experts on responsive web design. And so it's this online course, and it was with a whole bunch of higher ed people. And it was a real good opportunity to sort of get the lay of the land. And I knew from that class that was going to be the one thing that was going to be. So I kind of knew that was coming, but it definitely surprised me how long it took to work through that. On the other side, it was really great that once we figured out how all that stuff was going to be, making those templates went pretty fast.
That's good. You mentioned your trial and error, and we talked about this offline. I want to know about the admissions link that last week was in the website, because I was going to ask you if that was a prime location, how you chose that, and then you go and change it on me. I want to know why. Talk to me.
Okay, so in our old website, we had this little orange text on the side of our thing that was apply to UVM, just another way to get the admission site. And it was something that the admissions department, who's probably our biggest client, who we work with really intensely, they had lobbied for that a couple years ago. So when we decided to go responsive, we said, okay, what are we going to do with that sort of stray apply button that we have on our homepage and actually all our interior pages too? So we played around with it, and we finally created this little orange apply button that we put over on top of our logo. And we went live with that. And the admissions people didn't take long before they pushed back and said, we don't like the orange button. We think it competes with the logo. And so we said, So these are the people we have the whole button there for to begin with. So let's take a step back. And so we've tossed around a bunch of ideas about what to do with it, where to put it, how it should look. And we finally came to this conclusion that we would make it a little less intense. So it doesn't look like a button, but it looks more like the old apply button, but now it sort of slides up on top of the logo when you're on a narrow screen and slides back over to the right side, just below our search box on the wider screen.
It responds, it moves, and
it responds, it jumps around on the page.
I wasn't happy. I was like, where did it go? Let's talk about the plans because you seem to have a lot going on with the mobile site, the iPhone app, responsive site. Do you have an ultimate goal if you're playing Puppet Master, for 2 or 3 years down the road? What do you hope happens with all of these different things you have going?
Well, our short-term goal is to start flipping over as much of our website as possible into the responsive design. When we've changed designs in the past, we've sort of done it as a sort of all-at-once deal, where we've taken our master template that everybody accesses on their site and changed it, and then everybody gets a new site all at once. We decided not to do that with the responsive design because there's a lot of little pieces to the puzzle that have to fall into place, and we wanted to not stall the process by trying to get into everybody's site and make sure their content was going to behave okay in a responsive format. So our short-term goal is to start flipping people over and convincing them to come over. It's decentralized, so it's really their decision to come over, but we're there to help them to go over to the new responsive template and get their sites more mobile-friendly. And of course, we have our hit list, the sites that we'd like to see happen first, focusing on academic programs in our colleges and schools. But more and more of the site, we'd like to see that. As for our dedicated mobile site and our mobile app, we know that we're probably going to do something with them. We're just trying to figure out what. So we're trying to bury into the numbers and look to see, how are our mobile users behaving with the website differently, and is there an opportunity to deliver them a unique experience that sort of fits their needs? Maybe not 100% of the time, but maybe a set of needs that's not quite met by a responsive design, because with the responsive design, you still have all that website to drill through, and sometimes there's some information that you could move around and access in a different way that's going to be more conducive, especially to a small format like a phone. So we're trying to figure out what that is. We're watching closely what the other schools are doing. I noticed that Notre Dame and Harvard and other schools that have started doing responsive are still keeping their mobile sites. So I'm watching what they're doing as well, and we'll see. I think it's not really clear where we're going to go with those things. I've read a lot of articles about how apps. It's Noel Levitz. I read a white paper recently by Noel Levitz where they're saying apps are interesting, but they should not be your priority right now. So we're keeping them in the mix, but they haven't. Responsive is currently our biggest priority.
So you mentioned as you're trying to pull everyone into responsive. What are you doing with the rogue sites that still exist out there? How? Because we've all dealt with those, and we probably still do. I can think of one right now on campus that I would love to just. What do you have plans for them? I mean, how are you going to try to reach out and communicate with them more, or just let them do their own thing?
I'm going to make you really jealous right now, Brent. We have actually managed to get all of our college and schools and all of our academic programs into our look and feel. They're not using responsive yet, but they're all we've all roped them into shape. Our big rogue sites are sites that we probably not going to worry too much about. Anymore. I know. Athletics, that they need to do their own thing. They do their own thing kind of everywhere. Alumni, yeah, they got a very sort of special, unique spin on things. So, and they've got a good staff too, so they're doing great stuff over there. So we're not too worried about them. So we've been pretty lucky about the rogue sites. We still have a few out there, but they're sort of the low-hanging fruit. We're not too worried about them and their image. And so yeah, sorry to tell you that.
You're gonna make a grown man cry.
I have to say though, beyond the look and feel and going responsive, we do definitely have a problem with content, and we're working right now on content strategy. And I think that becomes an even bigger issue when we're looking at developing good mobile sites. We have a lot of websites out there that either we've been involved in or we haven't been involved in. People put a lot of time into developing them, and then they sit there and they don't get any attention. Or the attention they get is, hey, can you throw that link over there? Hey, can you throw that link over there? Hey, can you throw that picture of me and my kids up there? So we definitely have some content battles in front of us. And I think, whether it's mobile or not mobile, I think that's going to be the next big thing in higher ed. We went from having it very difficult to publish websites to easy, whether you're using a content management system or you let people do whatever they want. And it's sort of unleashed a beast. I was just noticing the other day we have 1.6 million pages indexed in Google on our domain. It's scary, scary stuff.
It made my head hurt.
I know. Mine too.
Let's take the mission. I'm sorry? I got a glitch there. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. How are you applying this across not only the web, but into, let's say, social media with Facebook and Twitter? Facebook specifically, everybody probably wanting their own page, but yet it's not going to be updated. Are you using a similar process for that, or is this any of your area at all?
It's related. We have in our office, I'm part of the University Communications Department, we have one of our people that's dedicated to social media, and she's not her only job, but she's been doing a great job of sort of keeping the Facebook and the Twitter in the loop. I think if we had a dedicated social media person, we'd be able to branch out a little bit better. But she's definitely keeping that alive and going. We definitely have some rogue Facebook accounts where people create a Facebook account, create a nice link to their Facebook account, and then don't do anything with it. So we're trying to kind of snap some of those in the bud. And we also are working with Integral on a Facebook admissions presence. So that's sort of outsourced for us. And that's, from all I hear, that's been working very well.
For those of you watching or will be watching later and have a question about the whole mobile concept. Eric from Notre Dame just tweeted, and I've retweeted a link. This is what he's planning on doing for Notre Dame's mobile site eventually, and he's got some
I'm gonna
information.
check that out.
I know it, copy and paste, right?
Yay, Eric.
Thank you, Eric, for that. Anything else you want to talk about before I wrap up here, or words of encouragement you can give? Maybe small teams like ours. Keep
Definitely, plan ahead. So we spent a lot of time sort of figuring out how we were going to do this and what we were going to do and sort of the best approach for moving forward. And definitely sort of publicize it. I think, I don't know, if it's like on other campuses what it's like here, mobile's still a little bit of a little sleeper. So we kind of have to make people aware that it's really happening and that students are using their phones more and more and more. And, it might not, the numbers in the prospective student age, I was just reading recently, the 14 to 17-year-olds, they are getting smartphones every day and their data usage is increasing. So it's happening so fast. We're used to rapid changes in higher ed, the internet space of higher ed, but this is, I think, a lot faster than anything else we've seen before. So it's, if you don't stay on top of it, it's going to bite you.
As will anything. That's true. Well, Tatjana, thank you so much for your time tonight. I'd also like to thank Omni Update and Integral one more time for supporting Higher Ed Live. And as a note for me, I want anyone who is watching live now or has made it this far or will watch it in the future, when it comes to someone like a sponsor, next time you're at a conference, and this is just for me, please take a moment and thank one of the sponsors, because without sponsors, we wouldn't have these opportunities to learn and network with each other. That's just a little personal request from me, if you don't mind. Next week, the Nick Donardis is going to tell you everything you need to know about team management. So mark your calendars. I believe that is on the 14th. You won't want to miss this episode. Thank everyone for putting up with Tatjana and myself in our matching green outfits. We've had a great time. Thanks for watching. Good night.